wanted to do is talk about Jane Fonda and the 21 branding lessons that we can learn from her. I'm your host, Rachel Quilty. I'm called the Brand Architect. I'm a personal brand strategist, authority positioning expert, brand management consultant at JumptheQ. And so, wouldn't it be nice if we could leverage your personal brand so that you could literally name your price? I often say that the secret to success is personal branding is really the prerequisite to success. So when you look at most of the iconic personal brands, you'll see that there has been a great deal of work on their personal brand, or they've had exposure and they've leveraged that personal brand. So if you're new to JumptheQ, we are always talking about branding lessons. We're always looking at iconic brands and seeing what we can learn from them. So this series is really about personal brands, iconic personal brands, and the 21 branding lessons that we can learn from those individuals. So what if you could simply and cost effectively build a powerful personal brand, create a brand that attracts clients, develop a brand that reflects your business goals? What if you could simply and cost effectively build a business presence that projects integrity and credibility, positions your personal brand for your market's expectations? So, welcome. As I mentioned, my name is Rachel Quilty, personal brand strategist as well as brand management consultant. I've also become recognized as an authority, an expert, I guess, in authority positioning. And so, what is authority positioning? It really is about establishing yourself as the authority, the go to in your marketplace, and being recognized for your expertise, your credibility, your integrity. And it's all about, if you wanted to kind of sum it up, it's about value adding positioning, because there's a lot of people who claim to be experts that really aren't. And authority positioning is really about stepping into your competence as well as establishing yourself as the credible authority in your marketplace. So, my business, JumptheQ, operates in the US and in Australia. We have clients and students globally. We have quite a few free resources. Pop over to rachelquilty.com and you can grab those there. So I'm the author of the instructional manual. Most people call it a book, but those who have read it, it really is an instructional manual on branding yourself. So it's the first book in the series, our signature series. So it's called Brand Yourself. I'm also a qualified filmmaker and director. So I'll often talk about terms and filmmaking is one of those things where a lot of the iconic brands that I draw our branding lessons from are within the film industry. So you'll see quite a lot of those. However, you'll see a lot of sports personalities as well. So I'm creator of the Brand Yourself Action Plan, our training program. It's our signature product, and it leads you into the Brand Yourself the Expert training program, as well as Brand Yourself the Authority training program. And then if you stay with us and you complete the prerequisites, you're invited to our VIP experience, which is Brand Yourself the Celebrity, which is a really immersive program where we do photo shoots, interviews, live filming. We're really preparing you for that leadership and authority positioning as the authority in your marketplace. So I'm also frequently asked as the authority in personal branding about the importance of personal branding and in business and personal success. And I've been interviewed by a host of different media outlets now, radio, magazines, TV, you name it. So what is JumptheQ about? Our goal is to ensure or to assist you strategically and systematically build your professional profile and leverage your authentic brand to become the recognized authority in your marketplace or in your industry. So why is branding so important? You're really at the bottom line, or simply it's the better your brand, the better your bottom line. So there's a direct correlation between brand awareness and your market share. And as I mentioned, personal branding is a prerequisite to success. So if you're wondering about the definition of personal branding, I have created a definition. It's literally 20 years now of talking about personal branding, and this is my definition. Personal branding is a strategic and systematic process by which individuals determine, define, differentiate themselves from others or their competitors, initially within a specific marketplace, industry, or platform, by their definable style, ability, message, or values through a method of intentional positioning, building, and leveraging of their unique purpose, attributes, and expertise to be recognized as the authority or the celebrity in their chosen field. So, fairly wordy definition, but it really is about intentionally positioning your brand as the authority. And while others may not talk about positioning as relevant, positioning yourself as the authority is the most important thing you can do. So, why is brand image important? Within a very short period of time, there's various studies, 3 seconds to 30 seconds, a potential client has judged you, decided whether they like you, whether they trust you, whether they would like to do business with you. So important that we maximize that initial image and manage our image. So this training is especially for you if you're having difficulty gaining authority, you're unsure of the appropriate brand to support your goals, your existing brand does not reflect your potential. So within the masterclass, you'll learn how to align your personal brand with client expectations, build a professional identity that complements your brand, and strengthen your personal or professional effectiveness. And so I'm really pleased that you're joining me today. We've talked a little bit about what is the definition of personal branding. I've given you a little overview of myself. And that was because we're going live on Facebook, it does take a little while for everyone to connect and join up. So we often will spend the first 2 or 3 minutes just talking about personal branding in a more generic sense before we dive into the personal branding lessons that we can learn from our iconic personal brand. So your time is valuable, so is your brand. Leave a comment, let me know where you're from, share what you learn, share what resonates you. Please, if you enjoy it, hit that like or heart button and share our content. So let's dive into 21 branding lessons, our masterclass this week. We're looking at 21 branding lessons we can learn from the iconic personal brand of Jane Fonda. So I'm diving into this because if you're not aware, we have a podcast, JumptheQ, and our branding lessons are one of the episodes. So we try and keep it tight so you can tune in as well as watch the event on Facebook. So, number one, reinvention keeps you relevant. Jane Fonda reinvented herself multiple times, from actress to activist to fitness entrepreneur. So the branding lesson that we can gain is do not become trapped in outdated positioning. Maintain that relevance to your audience and future audiences. So the application here would be to review your brand every 12 months. Well, branding lesson number 2, visibility matters. Jane Fonda stayed visible through media, interviews, activism, and publishing. The branding lesson here is that really invisible expertise rarely wins, and the application would be to show up consistently online. Previously, it might have been in written media or our newspapers and our glossies, and obviously now we extend that to online. Branding lesson number 3, stand for something. One of those things that we can see with Jane Fonda's brand is that she becomes memorable because she communicated very strong values. And the branding lesson here is that people really do trust conviction. And the application would be to clarify what your brand believes or what their beliefs are, what your values are, what's important to you. So if you're wondering what values are simply what's important to you. So your brand must be aligned to what's important to you. Otherwise, you'll see this misalignment. And, irrespective of whether you agree with some of the activism or the views of Jane Fonda or other personal brands, the idea is that they are standing for something. And, if you don't stand for the same thing, then stand for what you believe in. And Jane Fonda often says you assume responsibility for your life when you stop blaming other people. Branding lesson number 4, adapt before you need to. And we see this consistently with Jane Fonda. She evolved ahead of market shifts. And the lesson here is not to wait for the disruption. The application, pivot before relevance declines. And if you're wondering why, we're really doing a helicopter ride over these branding lessons. If you're part of our training programs, you actually are invited to our intensive masterclasses where we actually walk through these branding lessons in a lot more detail. For our podcast, for the live trainings to our Facebook, we literally just do an overview. So as I'm reading this, I'm going, there's so much content I want to be able to share with you, but I can't. And I because it's part of our intensive masterclasses. And while this might be a 25-minute, maybe 30-minute lesson, the intensive masterclass where we really walk through that personal brand in a lot of detail is about 90 minutes, and we have a workbook that's associated with it. So this is all about adapting before you need to, not waiting for disruption, and then pivoting before your relevance declines. Branding lesson number 5, build more than one income stream. So many people might not remember Jane Fonda built a business beyond entertainment. It included fitness products and books. So the branding lesson here is to diversify your income. And the application would be to create multiple authority assets. Branding lesson 6, your story builds trust. Jane openly discussed struggles, I should say, troubles, struggles, and transformation. So the branding lesson here is authenticity deepens connection. Be very authentic, and that really people recognize that they resonate with that. The application here is to prepare your hero, a very brief hero story. We don't want to overshare. We just want to have a story where we can indicate that we've had struggles, that we've transformed, that we've, been able to become a solution for others to learn from. And I go into that in a lot more detail in other trainings. Branding lesson number 7, confidence is magnetic. And I often say that confidence is very sexy, and it is very magnetic. So Jane consistently projects conviction. She's confident about her views. She is um, articulate, but she's also, you might say opinionated, but she owns her opinion. And I don't want to say opinionated. I want to say that she really does have some clarity around her thinking and her views, and that's what we should all have. Be able to express a strong point of view. The branding lesson, confidence strengthens our positioning. Uh, the application here is to stop diluting your expertise by not being consistently confident around it. Branding lesson number 9. Oh, let me jump into branding lesson number 8. I'm trying to jump over it. Longevity requires evolution. Relevance is earned repeatedly, not once. So the brand lesson here is prepare to evolve, and the application is refresh messaging frequently. Branding lesson number 9, emotional positioning matters. And we talked about being an authentic brand. And what Jane's emotional promise was empowerment and growth. The personal brand lesson here is that people buy identity. Like, we can see how strongly she held certain views, and she built a very strong personal identity or brand identity. It wasn't just information, it was identity. So the application here is to review your value adding positioning. And that's really about understanding how you're adding value to your audience. So emotional positioning, we talked about Jane's empowerment, female feminism movement, as well as the activism against with the Vietnam War and the growth that she experienced. Not everyone, including myself, supported Jane Fonda's views and some of her activism. However, I'm not going to disengage from what we can learn from her because of not having a similar view. She was able to powerfully represent a large portion of the of an audience, and because I'm a fan of the ADF, because my family, my grandfather, my great grandfather have fought in wars, because I understand and have been able to, as a director and filmmaker, have really a inside scoop on what the ADF in Australia was doing post flood disaster in Lismore. I really that I was able to see how hard they worked, how committed they were, how much community meant to these people, and so I've had a very strong. I strongly support the defence, and I will advocate and lobby for increased budget always for defence, especially because Australian national security is important, likewise other Western countries. So, what branding lesson number 10? Can we get involved in, um, can we spread ourselves too thinly? Can we get involved in conflicts that we shouldn't? Should we, and can we remove ourselves from conflicts too quickly? Absolutely. So, and I've just understood why I had some feedback from somebody, because they obviously were concerned about uh, Jane Fonda's comments around the Vietnam War. Okay, so branding lesson number 10, courage creates memorability. Memorability? Being memorable requires bravery. Uh, Jane Fonda was really neutral. I mean, she really has done some very memorable things. The brand lesson here is memorable brands utilize bold brand leadership. Application is, to share meaningful perspectives. Branding lesson number 11, authority is built over time. Jane Fonda's trust grew through consistency. So we've learned to trust Jane Fonda, whether we, like her or not, or whether we have like her opinions or not. We are able to trust her because she has consistently established her brand. So that authority has compounded over time. So what do we need to do to build that same level of authority? Develop and implement a brand communication plan. Really understand your messaging as part of that as well. Brand lesson number 12, build a brand ecosystem. Jane established or expanded into books, fitness, television, and speaking. The brand lesson here is diversification strengthens your influence. The application would be to start building brand assets, like we talked about books, fitness videos, television programs, and speaking engagements. Branding lesson number 13, stay curious. Curiosity kept Jane relevant. Curiosity supports brand leadership. And that's the brand lesson that we can take from this. You know, I've just recently had some comments around branding and AI. And I guess the comment I would make is that AI allows you to amplify your brand. And that's where I'll start with that. How the level that of your instructions to AI is really about your brand, and how much information that you can distribute that is consistently related or in the voice of your brand as a result of AI is quite interesting. So that's, I've got a speaking topic on that about building authority in the AI AI world. So curiosity supports brand leadership. The application here is to continue learning and leveling up and always remaining curious. I have a friend that is incredibly curious, and the level of tactical information that she knows is really extraordinary, and it positions her well. So staying curious, Jane Fonda says it's never too late to start over. So, branding lesson number 14, use controversy carefully. Jane Fonda faced criticism but remained visible. She really did face a lot of criticism, and that continues today, even. So, our brand lesson here is that we need to handle strategically controversy, which builds memorability. I mean, if we can avoid it, we should avoid creating controversy for the just for being controversial. But we also want to be able to establish, why we're being controversial. And so I say the application here is really to court controversy wisely. And that's all about your platform. I mean, you can be controversial, and you can disappear as a result, or you can have a platform and have a level of authority in your area that you can actually promote your view or your opinions. And while it might be courting controversy, it is also establishing your brand leadership. And I want to use the Ukraine, the conflict, Russia invading Ukraine, and those who in the European Parliament, European countries, basically took the very bold leadership stance of uh, supporting Ukraine, um, condemning Russia, and at the time it was almost like they were criticized. There was criticism directed towards them for openly supporting Ukraine, and yet we know now that this special operation was a Russian intention to, one, um, destroy Ukraine, and also to, steal their resources, basically. So be careful about your controversy. I mean, I am one of those people that I do call it controversy, and it's one of those things. I mean, I don't know that I've had a lot of criticism. I think I use education more often. And when I court controversy, it's normally not so much that I'm opinionated, it's that I'm actually quoting research and psychology, and I'm actually educating people, and it's often different to what is, popular opinion. So I won't continue to tell you about all the controversial comments that I make, but I do know that, if we look at, I won't go down there. That's for another branding lesson. So, branding lesson number 15, growth beats perfection. Jane openly embraced learning, even though she has a very, a very credible brand. There has been times where she has very openly shared her vulnerability. And we know from those people who have attempted perfection that from a branding perspective, it's almost impossible to maintain that level of perfection. So the lesson here is perfection weakens your relatability, and the application here is be prepared to ask yourself the tough questions. We're talking about growth beats perfection. I mean, we can pretend or be in denial about certain things, or we can be learning and growing and recognize our deficiencies and where we can improve, where we can grow. And honestly, personal branding is one of those. It's the I would say it's probably the best personal and professional development process that's ever been devised. This intentional and deliberate review of your personal brand really is a growth opportunity. It really is continually looking at where you can improve your brand, improve yourself. And so, from a professional and personal development perspective, there's nothing better than you can do than to review your personal brand. Okay, so Branding lesson number 16, position yourself clearly. Jane became associated with reinvention and empowerment. And we know from, if you've seen her mugshot with her fist raised, it was all about empowerment. The brand lesson here is be known for something that is aligned to your brand. You know, uh, sometimes you can kind of steer away from your brand and talk about something or have an opinion about something. It's not that you can't have an opinion about something. It just needs to be, one, aligned to your brand, or you have sufficient brand power to be able to talk about other matters beyond your area of expertise. So always make sure that you're known for something that's aligned to your brand, and own one clear market identity. And that is sometimes a little bit complicated. We often hear people question whether, we should have our personal brand as well as our company brand. And I will say that we should always have the two, which means that we may not have one clear market identity. We have the CEO over here, and then we have the personal brand here. So, it's one of those things, but each of them should have a very clear and distinct identity. So, branding lesson number 17, purpose outlasts popularity, and purpose sustained Jane's influence. And brand lesson really is about meaning builds longevity. So, make sure that your brand has meaning, that it's meaningful, that the work it conducts is meaningful as well. Application. Determine your brand's purpose. Branding lesson 18, build intergenerational appeal. Jane adapted for her younger audiences. She's adapted for different audiences, male versus female. A lot of her roles have been targeting a female audience and the empowerment of females. And yet, when you look at her role in uh, 80 for Brady, it was all about the NFL, the US football. So, and it was a good movie, and I've watched it several times now. Brand lesson really here is to stay relevant, and the application is to speak to future markets. And, I think it was interesting because Tom Brady was a cameo in that movie, and it was, kind of, uh, that speaks to beyond NFL as well. Like, so we've got Tom Brady having these appearances in movies and really starting to establish himself outside of the NFL in a strictly obviously since his retirement, that would be part of his plan. But it's good to see what's happened as a result. Okay, branding lesson number 19. If you're not aware, I'm a huge Tom Brady NFL fan. Love the Patriots. I loved it when he went to the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's one of those things. I'm a big fan. Okay, so branding lesson number 19, experience is an asset. Jane never hid her age. She's positioned wisdom as value. Branding lesson here is experience builds authority. And the application would be to start building assets that leverage your experience. So you might be somebody has like 30 years experience in your industry, and it would be really valuable. I call you a human capital to your industry and to your organization. And at some stage, while people may not, what I've noticed is that the procedures and the structure and the process that we had has been diluted. However, what will happen is there will be a return back to that procedural strength at some stage. And those who have the information and the knowledge and who document it and video and create the tutorials will be, helping the future and creating a valuable asset at the same time. So And I say that because my background is industrial relations advocacy and management. So, if I had to write a letter, and more than once, it was literally, it became a template. It became part of our resource kit. I wrote HR systems, I wrote safety management systems, I wrote fatality management systems. So it's one of those things. If there was something that could happen more than once, whether it became a template, it became a guide, it became an alert, it became a management system. So, branding lesson number 20, keep evolving publicly. Jane invented herself openly. I mean, she was very, very open because of her status at the time as an actress. That her evolution and her advocacy and her activism was given quite a powerful platform. Okay, so audience does connect to growth. And there's been a lot of comments made. Some people don't share personal insights, but Jane has been one of those people that has shared her personal insights around it and commented about growth and about personal responsibility. So, she's been able to share some of her vulnerability. And that's the application here, is be prepared to share some vulnerability, not necessarily in a too much information type of way, but just a struggle or a challenge or here's a solution. I have seen some of the biggest internet marketers, business coaches online, really while they've been super successful, one of the reasons that they're resonating so strongly with their audiences is because they're actually able to talk to the struggle of those individuals. So, I would have to say, Natalie Ellis, Amy Porterfield, some of these people that, are very successful, and yet that success is by nurturing the story around the struggle and making sure that people can connect and be relatable, because at this high level you can become unrelatable. You can be a perfect brand, or be striving for perfections and inadvertently uh, you know distance yourself from your target audience. So, they've been very successful in, I would say, potentially recognizing that issue and then, addressing it. And I've noticed in their communication, it's very, very personal. It's about the struggles. It's about the lessons they've learned. It's about the resources that they can share, etc. So, keep evolving publicly. Like I said, the audience connects with growth, and be prepared to share some vulnerability. Now, branding lesson 21 is that your legacy is built daily. And we can talk about the fact that Jane Fonda has built a legacy over decades. And there's a longevity here that has been consistently maintained due to the fact that she built it daily. I mean, she was able to move from actress to entrepreneur to author to speaker, and activism, etc., advocacy. So strong brands are cumulative. Jane Fonda's legacy came from decades of consistency. It's really about showing up. And I think, what happens is being in the film industry, that's showing up and leveraging um, PR, it becomes almost second nature. So, in a sense, you can see people leveraging it because they know it doesn't come around all the time. And if you don't take advantage of that opportunity, you might miss out. So, and everyone, I guess, in the film industry has seen the products of not taking advantage of certain situations. So, brand lesson: consistency is controlling your brand positioning. Application here is to consistently communicate relevant and timely messages. So, uh, authority positioning is all about becoming impossible to ignore for the right reasons. And it's so interesting that we're talking about Jane Fonda at the moment, and when you think about the legacy, her legacy has been tremendous. It's about feminism, growth, activism. supporting the planet with Ted Turner, and some of the like the UN vehicles like Earth Day that she's participated in, and being able to have dialogue with the president of the US, being able to you know enter into arenas where most people wouldn't be able to, even if they are actresses or highly popular actresses or actors. Not everyone has built that platform to be able to introduce themselves into these various areas. So, why is personal branding so important? The best positioning you can have among your prospects and clients is that of an expert, an authority in your area of expertise. So, in essence, you control your bottom line because you control the message. Take control of your personal brand and start naming your price. So, today I want you to share what you've learned. Uh, what have you learned already? And so, what's resonated with you? Maybe maybe what you'll do with your brand. Like, is there something that you went, oh, I think I should, establish or develop a brand communication plan. Maybe I should look at what digital assets. So leave a comment and tell us what you think you're going to do to assist your brand move forward. Now we have some free resources. Pop over to jumptheq.com or jump across to rachelquilty.com. We've got so many things in progress. And if you want to catch some of the 21 branding lessons from other iconic brands, the best way you can do that is to jump across to our podcast. And if you're going, okay, well, we are always adding to the podcast. So you need to just be patient with us if there seems to be a delay or something's not appeared just yet, because it is something that there's a lot of podcast material that's there. One of the things I would encourage you to do is go across to Facebook, go into Jump the Q. We have a training. It's literally a free training portal. All of our trainings are there, a lot of our free resources. You will learn so much about branding just from our free training that's on Facebook in the Jump the Q group. So, as I say, your personal brand should reflect your abilities and potential.